Hi, my name is Fred Dodson, and this is the Ask Me Anything session 2018. The first question we have is from Salva. I don't know where from. And it's, how can I create in my reality a meeting with someone specific? Well, in my reality, when you want to meet somebody specific, you ask that person whether they want to meet. Simple as that. So I'm assuming that's not the real issue. The real issue is probably, what if I get rejected? Is that the real issue? Because if you want to meet somebody, you walk up to them and say, or you call them and say, or you write to them and say, can we meet? It's as simple as that. And this whole complexity of having to visualize a meeting with them and having to prepare yourself for the meeting with them is simply fear speaking, and it's usually fear of rejection. And if fear of rejection is the real issue, then the real solution is to love and value yourself more deeply. Love and value yourself to a point where you feel worthy of meeting that person, where you feel ready to meet that person. If you do not reject yourself first, inwardly, you will never be rejected. And even if you are rejected, you won't feel it as rejection, you'll feel it as the other person missing the opportunity of a lifetime. Okay? The next question is from Liz in Romania, and it's, in your opinion, what is the easiest method to stop the mind flux of thoughts, disidentify from thoughts, body and emotions? Okay? My question back to you is, do you really want to disidentify from your thoughts, body and emotions, from these wonderful, precious tools you've been given? The power of thought, the power of emotion to feel reality, that beautiful physical vehicle you have. Why would you want to disidentify from them? Do you think that's what will make you enlightened? Now, if you want to calm your mind and not so strongly identify with the mind as I am the mind, then that I understand. Okay, but in general, the body, mind, and emotions are not bad things. You just want to learn how to have them rather than them having you. I think that's what you mean. To have some control over your reality, over the reality of your body, your thoughts and emotions. So calming the mind, I have two new, very good videos on that. One is called Silent Mind Exercises, and the other is called Meditation on Spaces. Those two videos available on my website in coaching videos or member videos. Are excellent tools to calm the mind, to make the mind more quiet. As for your emotions, you want to practice non-resistance toward your emotions, because the moment you resist them, you get involved with them. You just allow negative emotions to pass through, and positive emotions you enjoy. Your positive emotion comes through the right thought, and that's where the power of thought comes in. And your body is the vehicle you require to exist in this physical reality. You don't necessarily want to dissociate from your body. It can be a very unpleasant state. Okay? What I mean by not identifying too strongly with the body is not a disassociation or disidentifying. What I mean is, the body has its place. It's not the most important thing. Physical survival, food, and sex are good, pleasurable, but they're not the main point. The main point is developing a feeling for energy, feeling the energy. Okay, so that's how you disidentify from the body. You prioritize energy more, feeling more. Thank you. The next question is from Katerina, and she says, I've been dealing with a loss of smell for over 2 years. And then there's a long description, and the intention is to regain my smell and go back to the way I used to feel, healthy, strong, and full of stamina. My question to you is, what else do I need to do to regain my perfect health back? Everyone tells me that I need to accept the fact that I might not get my smell back, but somehow I don't believe that. This might not be answered within this short Ask Me Anything session. You might want to book a coaching with me, one Skype session at least, so that we can go into it more deeply. But for now, or if you don't want to book a session with me, the first question of interest is, was there something that happened to you that made you want to cut off your smell? Something you were disgusted by. Perhaps even some stench, literally. You were so disgusted by, you cut off your smell. That's the first question. The second question to explore and examine is, what hidden benefit could it have to no longer have smell, to have lost your smell? And that's not in order to, resign yourself with the fact that you'll never smell again, but if you find a positive benefit of something, it lessens the resistance, it increases the inner acceptance, which actually makes it more probable for you to heal, because there's no resistance. So what hidden benefit could it have to no longer smell? For example, could it be that this increases your inner smell, your inner sense of intuition, of feeling things out? Explore. The third thing to explore is, can you imagine or remember smelling? Do you have memories from your life where you could smell things? So can you close your eyes and remember what leather smells like, what flowers smell like, what vanilla ice cream smells like? And I believe that if you can remember smell on a daily basis, okay, as an exercise, a daily exercise, that increases the likelihood of your body following suit, increases the likelihood of you regaining your smell. I congratulate you that you do not believe that it's impossible, because I know from my experience that nothing is impossible. Okay? Thank you. The next question is from Nidal in Tunisia, and it's, do human beings reincarnate? And I've answered that question with an entire book called Lives of the Soul. So it's a bit more broad and expanded than simple yes or no in this case. So people ask me, is there a hell, is there a heaven, or do we reincarnate? And I say to them, all of that and then some, and then more. Reality is much larger than these teachings that have trickled down to earth tell us. Okay, so after death, in the afterlife, you have many options. One of them is to descend in consciousness, which is traditionally called hell. One of them is to ascend in consciousness, which is traditionally called enlightenment or heaven. And one of them is to stay at the same level, which is traditionally called reincarnation. So I don't believe you have to reincarnate, There's many other places you can incarnate to. There's other planets, there's other dimensions. And in fact, I don't believe that reincarnation is such a fantastic thing, because it indicates that you didn't get the job done in your current incarnation and you have to try again, or you want to try again, you want to try to make it better. That's the secret of reincarnation. It's not the most ideal state. Why would you want to come back again if you've lived fully and experienced everything there is to experience on earth fully? So I'm not saying it's not possible, it certainly is. There's even clinical evidence of reincarnation, but it's not the only thing there is, and it's not a must. So in some religions, such as Buddhism and Hinduism, they teach that that's the way it is. Everybody reincarnates, and that's just a must. But that's not my experience. That's a very limited view. And then there's other religions that teach there is no such thing as reincarnation. That's also a limited view. How about having an infinite view where the options are endless and infinite? There's so many ways to go and places you could go in the afterlife. Thank you. The next question from Jason in Japan is, what would, in your view, be the best and most efficient way of influencing mass consciousness? One could have world peace in mind, but I'd like to know what an individual can do to help animals from being seen as things to eat, versus animals have a right to live, are in their own way intelligent, and it's a crime to kill them, whether human, cow, or pig. So basically ending the slaughter of all animals. Should I discuss with people, meditate on radiating that reality, just present this belief as myself without wanting to change anybody? And in my experience and my view, you have to be the change you want to see in the world. You have to be that. There are many different people on earth at many different levels of consciousness, and trying to change them doesn't work permanently. Trying to get everybody in line with your particular philosophy is a waste of energy. Okay? And it's also the cause of all conflict and all war, because people come to this planet at different levels of consciousness, and if they're going to eat meat, then they do so with the purpose of connecting more with their level of consciousness. Eating meat is actually connecting to the physical reality. Not everybody wants to have a light body and float around at those levels of consciousness. They want to be connected to the animal realm, the physical realm, and that's why they do that. So what you could do instead of trying to change others, is you could demonstrate your preferred beingness, because at the end of the day, you get what you put out. You don't get what others put out, you get what you put out. What you radiate is what you get back. Another way to put this is you're judged by your deeds, not by other people's deeds. So it's important what you do, what you show, what you demonstrate. So if you demonstrate vegetarianism, there's always higher versions of that you can demonstrate and show. You could own a vegetarian farm, for example, and find ways of showing that to the world, demonstrating that to the world, and anybody who likes it will learn from that and follow you on that. And that's the best way to influence others, by being it. Not by telling others what to do, not by trying to control them, but by fully being that reality to the fullest. Okay? That I am certain of, because all of this political activism is based on trying to get others in line with one's philosophy, and you see how that goes. It doesn't really go anywhere because people are at different levels, in different bubbles, in different realities. Thank you. The next question is from Fatima in Morocco, and it's, what's the definition of consciousness as a concrete function ability I can practice in my life? Like, for example, the other functions we have: awareness, which is practiced by being the witness; imagination, which is practiced by visualizing; and will, which is practiced by being source of my actions. Thank you. Well, Fatima, it's like asking, how can my eyes see my eyes? It's not an easy task, because you are consciousness. And it's actually consciousness that is performing these things that you listed. It's consciousness that is performing awareness, performing imagination, performing will. And through the performance of these things that you've listed, you are actually expressing consciousness. So while you may not be able to see consciousness, you can express consciousness. Consciousness is the field that grows and sustains everything. The plant life, the animal life, the rocks, your thoughts, everything. Okay, it's the basis. It's like, you could say that awareness is your field, and consciousness is the same thing as awareness, but applied not only to you personally, but all that is, everything there is. And by practicing awareness, imagination, and action, you're already practicing, developing consciousness, so to speak. Even though consciousness does not need to be developed, it's simply the field out of which everything grows on its own. It's not something that needs to be controlled by you. Thank you. The next question is from Justin, and it's quite a long email. I struggle with losing poise when I get too many people or things pulling my attention. I feel constriction, which puts me in a defensive mode, and notice that I tend to get abrasive when this happens, which is reflected in my external reality as well. Generally, this is my cue to take a time out and go into silence. I also try to maintain soft focus, but sometimes the externals get the best of me, and I just have to take that time out to get back to a good state where I can more easily interact with things and people in daily life. But sometimes attention gets immersed, whether I attend otherwise or not, and I don't always have a chance to get away from the action. My question is, do you have any recommendations for this situation? My goal would be to stay centered when things around me tend to be a bit chaotic or frantic at times. I've set an awareness timer on my phone, but I'm passionate about what I do, and more times than not, I get sucked right into the drama of it all. Understanding the tremendous value of remaining poised, I'd appreciate any advice you have on this matter, and also would like to wish you well and thank you for all that you have helped me to achieve thus far. Well, Justin, first of all, what I read out of your email is one of the things you write is, I don't always have a chance to get away from the action. And that's not true. That's a belief you need to question. The belief that you have to stay in the action or stay with certain people at all times. And another thing I get from this is that when you get abrasive, you take a time out, and that's too late. Once you get angry and abrasive, it's way past the time you should have taken the time out. So hours and hours before you get angry, it's already a development within. It's a subtle tension. It's a not taking time for yourself. It's a not doing what you really like. And then after hours of doing that's when you get abrasive. That's when you get angry. So the time out needs to be much sooner, okay? You generally have, you don't have to put up with anybody at any time. You do have the right to remove yourself from people. Generally, if you're at this frequency and somebody else is at this frequency, and those two frequencies are too far away, there's going to be some friction. And in a positive sense, this friction can cause a lot of creativity, can also cause passion. But if there's too much of it, and if it's all the time, you'll want to remove yourself from that person more often. And it's better, it's more easy, not better, but more easy to align yourself with people who are on the same page and the same frequency, have the same intentions, the same drive, and the same goals. And that's what you want to do once in a while too. You don't always want to be with vibrations that are too far from your own. I take the right to remove myself if it gets too much or if the frequency is too discordant, you know. And in the cases where you can't remove yourself, so you say, I'd question whether that's really true. It's really true that you can't remove yourself. So you got to look at your beliefs around work, your beliefs around passion, because passion can turn to anger if the passion is not fulfilled. If the desire is not fulfilled, it first turns into frustration, then it turns into anger, so you'll want to get more results. Otherwise, passion goes foul. And those are the best two ways. One way is to do the time out and to remain poised and to remove yourself and to take a break. That reduces the passion. The other way is to fulfill the passion, to fulfill the desire, to get the result done, to get the job done properly, by which you feel relief, you see. Thank you for the good question, Justin. The next question is from Safa in Tunisia again. I experience for 30 seconds a higher state of happiness, peace, serenity, and feeling the love and beauty in everything. How can I keep this state for longer, 5 or 10 minutes, for example? Well, you can increase that from 30 seconds to 5 minutes by, when it happens, going into silence and exploring it, by focusing on it, because what you focus on tends to grow. Thank you. The next question is from Rehab in Germany, and it's, I have obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. Well, that's quite a label to give yourself. Be careful with the labels you give yourself. And I am afraid of mistakes and not to be accepted by other people. I know that fear is an illusion, but I'm trying since at least 2 years to overcome my fear, but I haven't until now. I'm not living the life that I want. Well, of course you're not living the life that you want, as long as you live in fear. So what I'd recommend you do is go to my website, and in the audios section, member audios, there's a recording called Releasing Obsessions and Compulsions, something like that. I'd listen to that many, many times, 10, 20 times over the next weeks. And then there's another one called How to Stop Fear. I'd listen to that 10 to 20 times over the next weeks. And then there's another one called the Then What exercise. That's in member videos on my website. I'd listen to that several times. Okay? If you don't have access to my website, it does cost $100 a year, but that's very cheap compared with the power of the recordings there. There's hundreds and hundreds of recordings you can listen to there, but those three I recommend. All right? That's why I create these programs, so that people can help themselves, can become better in their own time, in their own power. I wish you all the best. The next question is from Samip in India, and it's: since perception, understanding, and experience of reality changes as per the understanding level of the person and also their state, how do we assess the operating level of people quickly while communicating with them? Samip, it is for this purpose specifically that I wrote the book Levels of Energy. I'm sorry to refer you to a book, but that's precisely why I wrote the book, so that once you're finished with the book, you can very quickly and easily, based on certain symbols and signs, and by intuition, determine whether somebody's at a very negative, middle, positive, or very positive level of consciousness. And it's rather easy to see. There's many smells, sights, and sounds that indicate that. There's also a tone of voice that goes along with every consciousness level. There's a way of looking, there's a way of referring to the world, there's certain vocabulary, and all that is described in great detail in my book, Levels of Energy. That's the best thing I can recommend in this case. Thank you, Samip. The next question is from Raphael in Germany, and it's: do the Illuminati exist? Raphael, I don't know about the Illuminati, but I do know from my book Levels of Energy and my research for Levels of Energy, that extremely negative people exist and extremely positive people exist. And by the nature of extreme negativity, they would want to be secret. Okay, if they're extremely negative, that would have to be secret, otherwise the rest of us would be outraged. So if there's extreme negativity, and that would be secret, it then follows that there's secret organizations. What these are called, I really don't know. What I do know is that many of these books on the Illuminati, many of which I've read when I was younger, are not accurate. Why are they not accurate? Because if an organization is going to be secret, there wouldn't be any books about them. That's true secrecy. And if there were books about them, they would be books published by that organization in order to stay secret, in order to mislead people. Okay? For example, there's a lot of ideas out there that Freemasonry is a secret and evil organization, but the reality of it is that it's not. Freemasonry is a rather boring organization with no secrets whatsoever. So you have to assume that these books are like veils. Many of these conspiracy books are like veils to cover up something else. However, that's not my field of research and that's not my interest. My interest is the positive, the life-affirming, the beautiful, and ascending in consciousness, not extreme negativity. Thank you. The next question is from Yasin, and it's: I've learned from you that reaction equals creation, so how to stay calm and poised and not automatically react when unpleasant events and people show up in your life? Well, Yasin, you have to define how you would like to react the next time, and the next time, and the next time similar happens. So you get many opportunities to redo the same scene, to redo a similar situation. It's like having many different movie takes, okay? So today you reacted in this way, and then you consciously think about how you would like to do it next time, how you'd like to react the next time this person shows up, for example. Okay, and if you still don't get it right, you re-intend. Okay, but the next time I meet him, he's not going to push my buttons, he's not going to get me. I intend to stay in this and this and this state. And maybe you still don't make it and you react that way again, he did push your buttons, so you redefine again. Okay, next time I'm in a similar situation, I'd like to be this and this and this and this way. You've got to tell your subconscious that. That's how to do it. That's a practice for all of life. And it's beautiful. It's like you get a chance to redo certain movies over and over until you get it right. Because every day, let's be honest, and every country you are and every situation, it's similar. Okay? It's not about the situation or the people. It's about who you are. No matter which country you travel to, you get certain archetypes of people that really annoy you, and then you get others that are really nice. And it's all about who you are and how you react to these things. But there has to be conscious intention and imagination on how you want to react. Otherwise, you keep reacting the same way because that's what you're used to. Okay? And then even if you react badly, you're not forced to keep feeling bad after that. Even then, you can change your reaction to your reaction as long as you remember that you wanted to. It's a matter of consciousness and awareness, as is everything. Thank you. The next question is from Hamza, and it's, my name is Hamza from Saudi Arabia. My question is how to cross the threshold and barrier of reason and wisdom in the 400s, according to the consciousness scale, into love, the 500s, as many people stay in this area for the rest of their lives. Well, Hamza, people familiar with the scale of consciousness or levels of energy do not stay in this area for the rest of their lives, frankly. I know that's what's said by many teachers of the scale out there, but that's not a fact, because once you're aware of the scale and you're aware that love is the way up, love is the way to go, you start gravitating in that direction. You start practicing loving kindness and patience and forgiveness and calm, and you start practicing care, taking care of a pet, taking care of a partner, taking care of your garden, taking care of your car. All of those are expressions of loving kindness. And as you practice those and let go of too much reasoning and intellectualizing and analyzing, you ascend to that level. You know, you might be talking to somebody, having a conversation, and you notice that you only relate to them in terms of information and what data they can give you, and then you realize, wow, I'm just in the mind. So you let go of that, and you try to see the person with loving eyes, you know. Hey, wait a minute, there's a human being in front of me. Fascinating. What could I do for that person? What does that person need? And that's a whole different energy and level than only relating to that person in terms of the mind, of analysis and information. So you'll catch yourself being on one of those levels, and you'll let go, and you'll change. Okay? So you will not stay stuck in that for the rest of your life. In fact, it's very easy to practice love, forgiveness, kindness. Once you feel its benefits, it's no big deal. You get used to it, get into the habit of it. All of my teachings gravitate in that direction. When I teach people to let go of analyzing too much, it gravitates in that direction. When I teach people to forgive, it's very easy and it's very pleasant. That's why it's easy. This question is from Dr. Amal in Kuwait. I like to ask about why certain circumstances reoccur in relationships even after practicing forgiveness of that person and practicing reality creation techniques for having a good relationship and releasing negative beliefs of relationship and marriage. Well, if you've really practiced all those things and you've cleaned up in yourself, that's great, because that means you've grown. And if the other person is still not changing, then it's because of the other person, not because of you. That's how you know. Is it because of me, or are they just that way? Are they just on that consciousness level? Because you first clear everything up in yourself, and then if they still remain like that, it is them. So now you know who that person really is. And you're faced with a choice to either ask them to improve their behavior toward you, setting borders, telling them you will no longer accept certain behavior, bad behavior, if it's bad behavior, or to just remove yourself, okay, even if it's just for a week or 2 weeks, or perhaps a month, or perhaps a lifetime. So, if none of these techniques worked, it's time to set borders. The next question is from Angelica in Germany, and it's you wrote in one of your books that your basic level of energy runs between 475 and 510. How does it become like this? Do you sometimes get lost and crash down? No, I do not get lost and crash down. As I said before, maintaining a level of basic kindness and integrity and creativity and calm is natural for me because I've been in it for such a long time. So once you get used to certain frequencies, they're so easy. They're only difficult in the beginning, okay? And it's also because I move up the scale slowly and incrementally. That's why I don't crash. I don't move up suddenly, like with drugs, by the way. You move up quickly and suddenly, and then you crash because you're not used to it. And that's why I don't take drugs in order to elevate my consciousness, because it does nothing for me to get used to higher frequencies naturally. That's why my energy is very stable. Now my challenge is going to come up if I ever decide that I want to go even higher, because I'm not used to higher than that. So that's when I'd have to again invest focus and effort. Thank you. The next question is from Artur, and it's, hi, is the law of attraction, which is decision, intention, being, above other laws and forces such as numerology, astrology, soul's purpose, etc.? Well, Artur, if you want a ranking of the things you've listed, I put soul's purpose up here, and then law of attraction here, and then numerology here, and astrology here. Astrology, your zodiac, is something you want to transcend, not something you want to follow. So if you were born in a certain sign, a certain template, you don't want your personality to be limited to that. You want to be aware of it, but then become more than that. You want to transcend it. So for example, I'm an Aquarius, And Aquariuses are always diplomatic, and they're always universal, but if I'm always that way, that's a limitation. I don't always want to be diplomatic. Sometimes I want to make very clear choices and see things in black and white. And that's not part of the Aquarius reality. So of course I want to transcend that. So astrology is not such a priority to me. Neither are all these other personality type systems, because fixating somebody on one personality is ultimately just a limitation. You are much bigger and wider than any of that. As for numerology, numerology is more of the language of the subconscious, language of the universe, related to synchronicity. A recent article of mine on that was called There Really Are No Coincidences. And I recommend you read that. That's where I tie numerology to synchronicity, in that certain names and numbers have certain universal meanings. Okay? As for the law of attraction, it's very important. It's a very basic thing that everybody should know. It's not the only thing one should know. It's not the ultimate, but it's something very important to know, that you attract in general according to what you energetically radiate. Your identity, your core beliefs, your emotions. Thank you. The next question is by Sandra, and it's, I would like to know if you've ever heard of transurfing and what your thoughts are about it. Yes, I've heard of transurfing. I think it's good. I read 2 books of transurfing a long, long time ago, but it's not something that interests me personally, because it's on a similar, it's too similar to the frequency that I teach. And that's why I'm sure many of the readers of my books would be interested in it, but I wouldn't. I'd be interested in frequencies and energies and information other than what I teach, you see. So yes, in general, I support transurfing teachings. The next question is by Alex. What advice do you have for someone who wants to read books for personal growth but has a very limited attention span? That's Alex in Australia. Alex, attention span is very, very important, not only for reading books, but for all of life. And reading, in fact, increases your attention span. So you're saying that I can't practice my attention span because I don't have attention span. You see the paradox in that? The catch-22? It's funny. I can't expand my attention because I don't have attention. You want to really look into attention more deeply, into patience, into breathing, and also into more interesting, more fascinating subjects and books. Because I'd guess that you do have attention span when something really interests you. Say a movie that really interests you, you may not have too much problems staying with that movie, okay? And then eventually, once you get a hang of really fascinating books, you'll want to increase your attention span by once in a while also reading things that may not be instantly entertaining, but are important for you to read, okay? And even if it's only just 10 minutes, that's also practice, you know? You want to slow down, especially. Slowing down and becoming more patient and satisfied in the here and now is a large part of gaining better attention. Everything in life is an opportunity to increase your attention span. What I'm doing right now is increasing my attention span. I'm trying to answer all these questions spontaneously, without preparation and without pause. And that kind of practice, which I've been doing for a long time, makes you very strong and also very happy. The next question is by Enos in Hawaii, and it's, how can one incorporate reality creation into the life of a child that one is raising? At what age would you suggest starting, and should it be a daily activity? I'm trying to always show and explain why I do reality creation and also how he can do it, but is that enough? Rather than teaching reality creation to children directly, as a philosophy or way of life, I'd, number one, be it myself, do it myself, because kids learn more from who you are, from your energy field, than from what you're telling them to do or telling them to be. Because kids are already quite open and quite enlightened. So by who you are, they learn by your example, you see. That's number one. Number two is you can direct your child's attention toward learning various skills that will increase your child's attention span. Skills such as painting, building stuff, playing soccer, learning this skill or that skill, anything that will focus your child on building his skills and creative activity, as well as physical activity. A good balance there will help your child, probably even more than directly teaching adult content of certain philosophies. He'll get to that eventually, but he doesn't have to if you focus his attention on that which is beautiful, good and true, and help him build his skills. He won't need to learn reality creation because he'll be pre-programmed on high frequencies and high energy levels, you see, and he'll know by nature how to control his attention, which is what reality creation is. An author knows how to do it, a painter knows how to do it, an athlete knows how to do it, and he'll know how to do it if he develops such skills. Now, don't overwhelm him with that, not too much, but a little bit in that direction is what I recommend. The next question is from Dimitri, and it's, there are many gurus who claim there's no free will. Even some neuroscientists claim that. This is an idea which worries me. Sometimes I do things where willpower is required, or I make a decision to change certain habits, but then there's this little voice in my head which is telling me it doesn't matter whether you decide something or not, and when you think you made a decision, it's just an illusion. There's no free will, so it's not up to you whether you can change yourself or not. What do you think about that? How can I let go of this disempowering thought of not having free will? Well, Dimitri, that's why I teach reality creation. That's why I do the job I do, because there's a lot of teachings, anti-free will teachings out there, which disempower people. And once you teach them free will and choice between negative and positive, you empower them, and then their life takes a better direction. And if you look at life, if you look out there, look at the results of people who believe in free will, and look at the results, the fruits of people who don't. And that should give you enough information about which path to take. Okay? It's a practical path. It's a path that's connected to reality. I choose to pick up this phone, and then I pick it up, And I'm aware of many other choices that I could make this very moment. There's hundreds of choices I could take. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just go with the flow and let others make choices, which is also pleasant. But if that gets out of hand, then I will have zero say in my reality. And there's control freaks out there who would love that if people believed there's no free will. They'd love that. Then they could control everyone. And I actually think that's the aim of such teachings, to make people docile to a point where they no longer care, where they're like you, what does it matter if I do this or that? But think logically, and also think from your experience, and think of the consequences of that philosophy. If it really doesn't matter whether you do this or that, if it really doesn't matter, what's the point of anything? What's the point of getting up for work? You might as well go to town and with a gun and shoot everyone. That's the end game of such thinking. Okay? It's not pretty, it's not pro-survival, it's not pro-ascension, it's anti-life. It's not good. So right now it's just a tiny voice in your head, and that's okay. You let it be a tiny voice, but you renounce it and say, that does not apply to me. Free will applies to me. Okay? Because that's your day-to-day real experience, and this other stuff is just hypothetical nonsense speculation. I decide to pick up my phone and I did it. And this so-called neuroscientist will say, well, that decision was made before you made the conscious decision because I registered electrical activity in your brain. And the reason for that is because this electrical activity is a part of consciousness which exists outside of time. And since this so-called scientist does not know of any consciousness outside of time, he comes up with such nonsense as there's electrical activity before you make the decision, and since there's only linear cause and effect, this thing caused that, which is utter nonsense. I recommend you watch my video, Non-Linear Causality, and get a deeper understanding of that. And that'll pretty much obliterate 50% of so-called science out there. Okay? Now, I'm not bashing all science. A lot of science is excellent, useful, and beautiful, but much of it is just complete nonsense that is not practical and not useful. And I say this as a success coach who is deeply interested in the success of the people I coach with. Thank you. The next question is from Dila in Algeria, and it's, hello Mr. Dodson, how can I overcome my fear of consciousness? And my answer to that is, I don't think it's consciousness you're afraid of. Consciousness is a very light and universal thing. You're full of it, everything is full of it. Please examine what you're really afraid of. Maybe you're afraid of too much consciousness because it would shine a light on what's in your subconscious, things you don't want to know or see about yourself. Thank you. The next question is from Maha, and it's, how do we build a good connection with Source? As Muslims, how can we benefit from the high energy of our sacred month of Ramadan as we have started fasting a few days ago? You've already answered your question, basically. Fasting is one of the many ways you can more easily connect to Source. Why? Because you become lighter and you no longer prioritize needing energy from material created reality, and no longer drawing sustenance just from matter. but from energy itself. And I think in about 700 years from now or so, we're no longer going to be eating food. We're going to draw energy directly from the universe itself. And that's one of the things fasting prepares you for. It's a beautiful thing if you do it correctly. I know a few people who practice fasting in Ramadan, and they complain, you know. That's not a way to do it. You don't complain about it. You appreciate the opportunity. Others, they stuff themselves in the evening to compensate for not eating in the daytime. And that's not proper fasting either. You don't have anything to compensate. You don't stuff your stomach at night just because you couldn't eat in the day. So you practice it with dignity and love, and then it will more easily connect you to Source. Now, just having the intention alone to connect to Source is enough, because that's going to put you on the right path. That's going to send you signs and ways to go, and it's going to manage your emotional navigation system. So you have this intention of connecting to Source, that's your main intention, and everything else is going to structure itself around that. So that means the things you feel good about will let you gravitate more in that upwards, and the things you feel bad about will make you gravitate further away from Source. That's how it works. Your emotions are built around your main intentions in life, your main values. Thank you. The next question is from Lubna, and it's, I heard in one of your audiobooks that you meditate while washing the dishes. How can I meditate when I clean the dishes? My maid is gone, I have lots of cleaning to do in the house. If I meditate while I'm cleaning, the cleaning will be too slow and time will go on. I have other tasks to finish too. And my answer to that is that meditation while doing dishes doesn't have to be slow, number one. Number two is that you can meditate in any activity you do by how you do the activity. It's how you do things. Any activity, be it washing the dishes or brooming the street in front of your house or running a company, any activity brings up the issues you have that want to be released. Okay? And one of the main issues for humans to release is impatience. Impatience assuming that you are not whole and complete in the here and now. Okay, so you use dishwashing, for example, to address the issue of impatience and then to slow down and to enjoy it more, not to rush. You might have the thought, well, I don't have to do this properly, just do it generally, and that's another typical issue. So it's not about doing it slowly or quickly, it's about any activity can be used to improve your consciousness. That's why I say the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. The way you treat people, there's a relation between the way you treat another person with patience or impatience and the way you treat your dishes with patience or impatience. And it's one question per person, so I'm not going to answer the other ones. The next question is from Anonymous, and it's, what does your diet consist of? Is it mostly organic or plant-based? Do you ever eat fast food? Do you avoid any low vibration foods? I don't follow any specific diet. I don't avoid any specific food. It's more that with a change of your consciousness and mood from life phase to life phase, your tastes naturally change. So there's things now that just no longer appeal to me. I'm not against them. I don't go around telling other people not to eat them. And I don't avoid them. I mean, if there's no other food available, let's say I'm on a road trip, okay, and the only place available is McDonald's, I'll go eat at McDonald's. But given the choice, I wouldn't eat at McDonald's because it just doesn't appeal to me as it used to when I was a teenager, where it really appealed to me. Now I see McDonald's and I feel an aversion, and this aversion is natural. It's like, no thanks. And I didn't really have to do anything for that. I didn't have to go on a strict diet or make rules, or it's just, it comes naturally with consciousness. So with a change of consciousness, you'll notice that too. You go into a supermarket and your taste just changed, and you don't know why. For some time you like that kind of food and now you don't. And that's okay, and that's what I'd go with. That's what I'd recommend. It's an intuitive way of eating without all these strange rules and strict measures people put themselves under. You see, it's also that if you're in a good state, you're not going to overeat, and you also feel whether certain foods are good for you or not. The problem is that there's just too much indoctrination these days about foods. They're driving you people crazy with you mustn't eat this, must eat this. 10 years later, oh no, we were wrong. New research says you must eat this, but not this. And then another 10 years later, no, it's all wrong. You definitely shouldn't eat this. And then there's 1,000 fitness coaches and nutritionists making money off the new trend. And the whole magazine industry makes money off of it. And most of it is just false and inaccurate information designed to make money. So no, organic foods are not always better than so-called processed foods. Processed foods are not all good. But what is right and not right for you, you have to determine intuitively from moment to moment. And you can do that if you're in a calm and clear state. That's more important than what foods you eat. Because from that clear state, you clearly see what is junk. Okay? And also you're not that hungry anymore. As I said earlier, one day, in a few hundred years perhaps, we're not going to eat any food anymore. We're going to live from the sustenance of the universe. The next question is from Nahom, is how can you consciously choose and remember what you would like to dream about at night? Can it affect your reality creation by doing so? If it does, how so? Yes, you can consciously choose and remember what you would like to dream about. If you explore lucid dreaming, staying awake in your dreams, you can consciously choose your dreams. But that's a pretty high level to achieve. It's helped by what you visualize while you fall asleep. Can it affect your reality creation by doing so? Yes, it can. You're changing your vibration in a certain direction. If it does, how so? You also say this question relates to the dream I had that we discussed earlier. I know what you're discussing, and I already told you when we had a conversation, I already told you, with you it needs to be more physical, because your aim has to do with playing football, and you cannot play football only in your mind. And I'm going to repeat it right here in front of everybody, because it's a very important message for you to receive. Because while we talked, all of your questions regarding visualizing and dreaming and feeling, but none of them regarded actually going out and playing football. And that's absurd. That's a misuse of the law of attraction, a misapplication of reality creation. Visualizing is merely a substitute for if you can't already do it for real. If you want to be a football player, you need to go out and play football. Okay? And as long as you can't play football, you feel it and you dream it and you visualize it, and that's great. But you eventually want to get as close to the reality you wish to create as possible. Reality creation is getting as close as possible. And if that means physically playing football, then that's what you should do. Thank you. And the final question is by Svi, and it's, I'm introvert, intellectual, and I have a lot of subjects and ideas, but I can't seem to find anyone to share with. How can I attract like-minded people? Well, first of all, you define yourself as an introvert, and the way you define yourself determines what you experience. Do you want to define yourself as an introvert? Or would you like to try something new? Would you like to define yourself and experience yourself and attract into your life as an extrovert? That's something to think about, number one. Number two, if you've defined yourself as an introvert, the corresponding action is probably only meeting people online. And if you define yourself as an extrovert, the corresponding action would be to get out there, get away from online world. Social media is actually anything but social. It's the opposite of social. You want to get out there and join the club, any club. If you've defined yourself as an intellectual, you might want to define yourself as physical, and you might want to join a sports club, for example. Or if you want to stay intellectual, you might want to join a book club or a debate club. You got to get out there if you want to practice the extrovert, or if you have difficulty meeting people. Another thing is you want to clearly define what type of people you'd like to meet, what friends you would like to have. If you don't give your subconscious a clear idea of what you want, it's not going to happen, okay? So if you just say, well, I'm an introvert and I'd like to meet other introverts, that's too vague. That doesn't give your subconscious a clear idea of what you really, really, really want. Okay, so this all has to be a bit more conscious and intense on your side in terms of how you define who you are and define what you want. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the Ask Me Anything session 2018. My name is Fred Dodson. Have a wonderful day.